Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be talking about Endurance by Alfred Lansing. My book's pretty beaten up. This is because my dog was trying to wrestle me while I had it on my lap. Not cool, Sammy. Okay, a little cool. A little cool. She's here, so you may hear her at some point move around. I don't know. I don't know how old I thought this book was, but I thought it was a recent book-ish. It's not. This book was published in 1959, and it's so well written. It's so well done that I really liked it. And look, I had a plan for this video. I was going to build the Endurance Lego ship, which is right there. Here it is. There's actually some information here that says the length. It is 144 feet. No, there. Is it going to focus? There we go. All right, so there's these 4 lifeboats. They took 3 of them. There's an engine. These are the dog kennels. Eventually, they ate the dogs. Not all of them, but as they ran out of stuff to help the people survive, they had to kill the dogs that were using up food, and then eventually ate them. But I think they were realistic about it. They understood that was the only option at that point. It was that or die. This actually it's supposed to have, I think, 2 anchors. This one has 1, but it got stuck in the ice, and one of the good things was initially when it got stuck in the ice pushed underneath it, and it actually lifted the boat and turned it, which is kind of okay because it'll ride up on top of the ice. But if it sinks down in, and instead of just sliding underneath it, it pushes against the hull, that's when it gets dangerous. So eventually, when they abandoned ship, they had some of these. They took them off. They were down in the water. They had them on the ice. They had them, this is not to scale, but they had them on sledges, the sled. And they would drag them in the snow wherever they were going. And you can kind of start to feel for how heavy. This is probably not to scale with the people either, but you can see, like, this is a little person. How heavy is this? The pool. If it's getting warmer, is it rough? This is a photographer, I guess. Here's the captain, Ernest Shackleton. Once they got to water and they realized they were going to have to get in the water, they would take it off of the sledge, put it in the water. And this one is actually kind of built up to be like it was when they were going to South Georgia Island. They build up the sides so that's like where it would be open, but they had this kind of structure built on top of it so people could stay down inside it. And part of that is because they're in such open and harsh seas that they would take on so much water if there wasn't a way to keep it up. So they actually built up the sides higher than they would usually be. So they had more freeboard. And yeah. And they also, one of the guys, this is not from this set. These are 2 different sets. But one guy, Hussey, had a banjo, and when they were collecting things they were allowed to take with them, I just dropped him. He was allowed to bring the banjo because they knew that people were gonna need to be entertained. So he was allowed to keep it. And then I was going to talk about the book while I was building. The Lego ship has 3,010 parts, maybe? Sammy. Maybe. And I just was impatient. So I built it ahead of time. And then, which was probably a good idea because it took me a lot longer to read it than I thought it was going to. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, not unique to me, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and it was a little distracting. So this is talking about the Endurance, which is the ship that Ernest Shackleton took to try to go across the continent of Antarctica. They left England in 1914 and came back in 1916. Spoiler alert, they live. But they run into trouble pretty quickly once they get south. So we've already had people that got to North Magnetic Pole, South Magnetic Pole, the North Pole. I think the South Pole at this point. I think they're kind of running out of first to do. So this was going to be the first hike across the entire continent. Is that a big deal? I guess. It seems like if you went to the South Pole, you're basically doing that anyway because you're doubling back. Because it's a circle. No, that's not why. That's not why you would double back. Because once you get to the South Pole, the only way to go is away from the South Pole or back to the coast. So walking all the way across is not like, oh, I wanted to see Asia and then I decided to walk across the entire continent. I don't think it's like that. It did. But they wanted to do it. Okay. So Ernest Shackleton had a couple other experiences and had a good crew put together for this. And that was good because they ran into a lot of trouble. I think what you frequently find with these expeditions is ice becomes a concern. Are they going to get stuck in the ice? Now, when you think about it and you haven't read one of these books, you think, oh, they're frozen in the ice, they can't move, and they just got to wait it out. But the reality is, ice, there's different kinds of ice, and ice does different things to different things at different times in different places. That's stupid. So, one of the big fears in the Antarctic waters, the South Seas, is that if you get stuck in the ice and it's solid, cool. But if it starts to break up, these giant, pieces of ice bigger than ships are pressing together and the force could easily crush a ship. This is actually one of the reasons that a lot of these ships that go to Antarctica before they were reinforced from modern ships were wood, because they could bow and kind of reshape where if they were metal and they got squished a little bit, that's the shape they were going to keep. So we have Endurance, and I think it's 144 feet, but that might be the last ship I read. They get stuck in the ice. There's actually a couple pretty cool charts. The Endurance expedition, their path, and then it actually zooms in here, because this is not just them going around in a ship the whole time. They get stuck in the ice, and the ice moves. It travels miles and miles, hundreds of miles. Kind of melts a little bit, reforms, and just rotates through. So there's movement there, and they can kind of position themselves or look at what their position is to see, are they moving closer to where they want to go? Are they moving further away? Are they moving to solid land where they can get off and then they're not worried about being crushed by the ice? But they get stuck in the snow, they get stuck in the ice, and they're trapped, and they spend a good amount of time on the ship just living it up. I think they have plenty of supplies. Initially, they have local wildlife to kill. At this point, 1915, I'm sure, hopefully, that they know about scurvy. They're eating things that will prevent scurvy. That never really becomes a problem in this story. True story. But eventually, something happens to the ship. Well, the ship starts to get crushed, and they realize that they had already taken some stuff off the ship just in case, but they also had all these dogs. They had dog teams, and they had kennels. They had them off the ship too earlier, but there were a couple things that they had to watch out for. If the ice started to break and there was a lead where the ship could get out, they needed to be able to get everyone on the ship quickly so they could get underway. If it broke up and it started to crush the ship, they need to be able to get off quickly, along with supplies, because then they were going to have to figure out how to survive on the ice. And they're in a very desolate place. There's not people close to here, within 1,000 miles or so. So, eventually the ship breaks up, and they have enough of the supplies, and the ship takes a long enough time to break up and sink that they're able to go back a few times, but they set up a camp, and it's almost like this book is done in a few time frames, or not time frames, but kind of themes. the book itself is broken up into different parts. Some of those parts I don't really get why they're separate, but you can kind of think of it as, here is the expedition on the Endurance headed south. They get stuck in the snow. Part 1, they get stuck in the ice. Part 2, they're stuck in the ice and they're surviving and figuring out what they need to do and hoping for some way of getting out and trying to get out of the ice by sawing and looking for leads and just basically what you hear about when any ship is stuck in ice. How do we get out of here? Part 3, Endurance is crushed and they have a settlement, tents and supplies and some of the boats outside of the ship, and they watch the ship go down and they start to say, what are we going to do? Well, we can travel here. We can either travel to what we were trying to do, because this other ship on the other side of the world was supposed to leave supplies. We could try to get to this island or land to get some supplies that were supposed to be left, I think, in 1902. What are we going to do? What actually happens is there's not a safe way to travel with all their stuff. I think of this area as flat, and it looks flat until you really get in close and you realize there's all these like valleys, like almost like canyons, and you can't move 1,000-pound multi-ton boats through those areas. You just can't do it, or you can't do it quickly. They're also exposed to weather. They're going into the dark period where the sun doesn't come up. This winter of the South. So they're dealing with just kind of maintaining positive or active lives while this is going on. Part 4, what are we on? Part 4? Part 4, ice starts to break up. They have to keep looking for different ways to get off of where they are. There are cracks that develop in their camps. They have to move to different parts of the ice. The ice is moving. Is it going to move so far north that it goes out to sea or it melts? They can feel currents. They can feel tides, waves going through the ice. They're worried that that's going to break up the ice enough that it's going to be able to crush them, or it's not going to give them a place where they can stand. Just added danger. So it's bouncing around. They're like, okay, hopefully this will take us close enough to this island, a couple different islands, or a peninsula, where they would be able to take the boats, which are on sleds, and drag them to a water line or the edge of the water, and then go to those islands. The problem is, where you can get to water is so far away and so dangerous that it's not just go to the end of the pool and jump in. It's an expedition in itself just to get there, and it's not safe, and it's unpredictable, and some of this ice can flip over on itself, so it's very, very dangerous. And they eventually realize that they don't have enough ice left, that it's going to be so dangerous, but they've moved the right way, and they're going to load up the 3 boats they have and try to go to 3 different islands. But the reason they're looking at different options, because really the wind and the current factor in this lot. They're going towards different islands. Eventually they end up on Elephant Island. This would be part 5. Elephant Island, they realize they have to move a little bit. It's kind of dangerous. They've already been exposed to so much of this weather. They're also running out of supplies, but they do have some food and now fresh water because of the freshwater ice that's on this island. But it's not somewhere they can stay. The beach they're on, the high water mark, if there's ever a huge storm, they'll probably be washed out. But they have people that are sick enough or hurt enough that they really mostly, or a lot of reasons that they're hurt is because of the exposure and the frostbite. 3 of them, led by Ernest Shackleton. No, 5? 5. Led by Ernest Shackleton, get in the largest whaling boat, the James Caird, and they head towards South Georgia Island, which is like 800 miles away. So dangerous. They have sails on this boat, but it's not. They've also had it modified, so there's like another layer, so they can kind of hide underneath, be away from exposure, but then get out, use the waves, and use the oars to move. The island that they're shooting for is tiny, relatively tiny. And if they undershoot it, I don't remember, something can happen. They're probably not going to undershoot it. If they overshoot it, which is very likely because they're like trying to hit this bullseye with a boat that's in the roughest seas in the world, the Drake Passage. If they overshoot it, then they're off into open ocean and they will die because they have like 3,000 more miles or something before they get to Africa. Not a good situation, or 1,000 miles more. They don't have enough food or water for that. Go through all these different storms. Eventually they find South Georgia Island and get on. Then they have to move from one side to the other because they're trying to find this whaling station. And that 5-member group breaks down to 2 or 3 members to go find the whaling station while the rest stay back and nurse their wounds. And then they find it. And in a couple days, ships leave to go back to Elephant Island to pick up the 22 other members of the crew. Everyone survived. The people on that island, they have no idea, and they think that probably the car didn't make it because really it was so dangerous that it's likely it shouldn't have been a success. They waited a lot longer than they thought they were going to need to because even coming back to get them from the island was not easy because of where the ice was and just how dangerous it was and how far away from the island the boats that were responding would be. 2 or 3 of them were damaged and had to return to where they came from. One of them was from Uruguay. One of them was from Chile. One of them was, I think, a whaling boat. So eventually they show up and they pick them up. And that's how it ends. It ends pretty quickly. There are some slow periods where they're stuck and you're just like, okay, oh man, this is not good. Oh, frostbite. Oh, I don't know how people live so long in cold, wet clothes, in soaking sleeping bags. We've just had snow last couple days here. I don't know how people deal with sub-zero temperatures. And I don't know. There's so many things in this story that you're just like, wow. And then by the end of it, it's so tense. And they live. They live. Spoiler alert. We've known for 110 years that they live. There's still these moments where you're like, how did they do it? They went in a 22-foot boat in the worst seas, 60, 80, 90-foot seas, super fast winds, 200 miles per hour. They hit the island they had to hit hundreds of miles away that was only like 10 or 15 miles wide. They hit that with less than optimal weather to actually take positions because this is pre-GPS. They're having to shoot the sun, celestial bodies, to get their positioning. Everything about it is just amazing. And it's from the very beginning. The fact that they survived the ship being crushed, the fact that they survived on the ice, the fact that they survived the ice moving, the fact that they survived the small boat movements from the ice to the island, Elephant Island, the fact that 5 of them survived the trip from Elephant Island to South Georgia Island, the fact that they made it back and everyone was still alive. Just everything about it was tense and amazing, and I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. But the fact that it's from 1959, it's really still like the authority of what happened, and he was able to talk to some of the people that were involved, that were still alive. It's an amazing story, and I'm happy I read it. I was waiting for the Lego ship to come. It came. I started reading it, and I was like, I can't put this down. I'll just build the ship whenever I can, and instead of this being a vlog, it'll just be a review. And that's what it ended up being. But Alfred Lansing's The Endurance, wow. What a story. What a story. And it's true. Thanks for being here today. I'll talk to you later.